Chelsea was undoubtedly the worst champion in the history of the Champions League. Not because of their journey to the final of this competition, but due to the team's performance in all other competitions throughout that year. It's truly remarkable that such an inconsistent club managed to heroically win their first Champions League against such a powerful team as the one Bayern Munich had at that time. Chelsea didn't share the group with big teams. The three clubs that shared Group E with Villas-Boas' team were Bayern Leverkusen, Genk, and Valencia. They defeated the German team in the first match and lost the second one. The first match ended 2-0 and was played at Stamford Bridge with goals scored by David Luiz and Juan Mata. The second match between these two teams took place at the Bay Arena, and the result was 2-1 in favor of the team of André Schürrle, Bernd Leno, and Michael Ballack, with goals from Drogba, Dirdiok, and Friedrich. The matchups against Genk were quite entertaining. In the first match between them, Chelsea managed to crush the Belgian team 5-0 at Stamford Bridge. Raul Meireles, Ivanovic, and Kalou each scored a goal. And Fernando Torres achieved an impressive double. The match at the GEZK Arena wouldn't be anywhere near a landslide victory. It ended 1-1 after goals from Ramirez and Vossen. An interesting fact about the Belgian team is that in that same season, they sold De Bruyne to Chelsea for a not surprising sum of £7 million. However, the English team decided that the young Kevin would finish the season in Belgium before joining them. The player said, "Being signed by Chelsea is a dream, but now I have to work hard to reach the required level." His time as a Blue was disappointing.
What the dog doing?
The London club only brings him bad memories because in addition to his poor experience with the team, a few years later, he would lose a Champions League final against them. On that day, he couldn't continue playing after a strong collision with Antonio Rudiger, but that's another story. Against Valencia, Chelsea drew 1-1 in Spain and won 3-0 in England. This way, the Blues finished first in the group with 11 points and advanced to the round of 16. Many football fans say that this stage is where the real Champions League begins. This is where things got serious for Chelsea. Their opponent was Napoli, a strong Italian team composed of tremendous players, some of whom ended up becoming idols for this club. Who are these players? Ezequiel Lavezzi and Edinson Cavani. The match was played at what is now called the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium. El Pocho scored 2 goals, and the Uruguayan scored the remaining one. Villas-Boas was disappointed because his team had been the first to score a goal, thanks to Juan Mata. That was the beginning of the end for the Portuguese coach, as Chelsea's season was turning into a disaster. They were 20 points behind the Premier League leader and on the verge of being eliminated from the Champions League. So after a defeat against West Bromwich at Stamford Bridge, the board members decided to sack Villas-Boas and hire Roberto Di Matteo. The former Chelsea player arrived at the club under a lot of pressure, but managed to meet the expectations. Under his leadership, Chelsea managed to defeat Napoli 4-1 in London, with a dramatic goal from Ivanovic in the 105th minute. This way, the Blues advanced to the quarterfinals. This opponent didn't pose any problems for the team of the Swiss-born coach. Benfica had great players. Axel Witsel, Nico Gaitan, and Pablo Aimar played for the Eagles, but they couldn't do anything against Chelsea. They lost 1-0 in Portugal and 2-1 in England, and were knocked out of the Champions League. Just like De Bruyne, Benfica fans hate Chelsea, as the following year they had to face them again, but this time in the Europa League final. The match, held in Amsterdam, ended 2-1 in favor of Frankie Lampard's team after a goal scored by Ivanovic in the 93rd minute. The Serbian player is truly an idol for Chelsea fans. I believe these two matches were even more difficult than the final against Bayern Munich. because they didn't face Braithwaite's Barcelona, you know? This Barca was the reigning champion of the Champions League. The coach was Pep Guardiola, and the star of the team was Lionel Messi, who that year made history by scoring 91 goals in 69 matches. At that time, the greatest player in history was only 25 years old. Bro, seriously, can you imagine how difficult it must have been for Chelsea defenders to face Leo at that moment? Eliminating that Barcelona was almost an impossible mission, but the Blues achieved it by winning 1-0 at home with a goal from Drogba and drawing 2-2 at Camp Nou with a stunning goal from Torres in the 91st minute. 14 days before playing the grand final to be crowned as the best team in Europe, Chelsea had to play the FA Cup final. The team of the Italian coach won 2-1 at Wembley against Luis Suarez's Liverpool, and the fans were becoming increasingly anxious to go to the Allianz Arena to support their team.
I'm Helly. And I'm Tatiana. The game was amazing! And we won, and it was so good.
Hopefully Arsenal finish fourth, we'll win the Champions League final and they'll end up playing in some Mickey Mouse Cup next season as well, in a half-empty stadium in the end.
On their part, Bayern Munich, after eliminating Real Madrid in the semi-finals, had to play a final against Borussia Dortmund in Berlin just 7 days before facing Chelsea, and they lost 5-2 against Jurgen Klopp's team. On that day, Lewandowski scored a hat-trick. But Bayern was able to get revenge the following year by defeating Reus's team in a slightly more important final. On May 19, 2012, the final could have been between Real Madrid and Barcelona, but the Germans and the English gave us a better show. The Bayern Munich team was composed of players who would become world champions in Brazil 2 years later. I'm talking about legends like Neuer, Boateng, Philipp Lahm, Toni Kroos, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and Thomas Müller. But all those stars were not enough to beat the London team. It was a very exciting match. German fans went from extreme happiness to deep sadness as Müller scored the first goal of the game in the 83rd minute, but Drogba managed to equalize the match in the 88th minute. There were no goals in extra time, so the final was decided by penalties. After the historic German midfielder missed, Didier managed to score the 5th penalty for Chelsea to win the Champions League for the first time in their history. Surprisingly, the top scorer and the top assist provider were not players from Chelsea or Bayern Munich. The top scorer was Messi with 14 goals, and the player with the most assists was Kaká with 5 assists. Was Chelsea the worst UCL champion? Look, it has always been said that the Chelsea team that won the 2012 Champions League is the worst to have ever won it, but honestly, that's not what I believe. I mean, I know the Blues failed in many competitions that year. They finished 6th in the Premier League table, lost in the quarterfinals of the Carling Cup, lost the UEFA Super Cup final 4-1 against Atletico Madrid, and the FIFA Club World Cup final 1-0 against Corinthians, at that time under the management of Rafa Benitez, the third coach that year, and with Hazard on the pitch. But with all that being said, I think that Chelsea's participation in the 2012 Champions League was fantastic. I mean, they beat the reigning champions in Bayern at the Allianz Arena. That Chelsea team was an exciting one packed with iconic players. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the bell to stay tuned for our upcoming videos. Peace out.